Okay, good afternoon. We are back for our second and a very important session. We have some very distinguished guests, and it's a very important topic that I think is being discussed a lot recently in the media and across the board, especially given that currently we have elections as we speak going on in J&K. Um, we have some wonderful personalities here, and I'm hoping that after the discussion, we'll be able to, after their presentation, we'll be able to have a discussion, and they'll be able to take some Q&A. We're going to start with Shri Ajay Churungu, who is the chairman of Panun Kashmir Bharat, and he's going to go first in his remarks, and then we're going to have Mr. KPS Gill, Shri KPS Gill, who's the former Director General of Police here. So, please.
Honorable Mr. KPS Gill, Mr. Sanjay Puri, distinguished audience, I'm privileged to be part of this conference and talking to you about an issue which is perhaps one of the most critical issues so far as the entire Hindu activity globally is concerned. See, the relevance of Hindu action eventually can be gauged by its relevance to the Hindus living in environments where they are a minority. The relevance of Hindu mobilization, political and cultural, if it does not have relevance to the Hindu struggle where they are living as minorities, creates a process by which the entire mobilization and the entire activity becomes irrelevant at one point of the time or the other. The places where Hindus are living in minority can be broadly categorized into places outside India and places within India. And places where Hindus are living outside India and are a minority, again can be broadly categorized into two areas. Places where they have a genocidal problem, where they are facing a genocidal attrition, and the places where they are facing the problems of discrimination. In India also, the places where Hindus are living as a minority can be broadly described into areas where they have suffered genocide and extermination, and the areas where they are a minority but the problem has not reached a stage where it can be called as a process of extermination or genocide. I've come from Jammu and Kashmir. I belong to Jammu and Kashmir. I belong to Kashmir Valley, and I have come. In fact, I was expelled from the place in 1990, and since that time, we have an existential struggle. We have a struggle in our own country to make the political class in this country to recognize that it's not a migration, it's not a voluntary displacement. It's a religious cleansing which can be easily described as genocide. While listening to the inaugural speeches yesterday, I felt the necessity of at least mentioning to you that the problems, the existential problems which we, the Hindus, are facing, we have developed a historical tendency of trivializing them and describing them in words which do not describe the problem. We have seen globally people talking about great games of genocide, people talking about the genocide and Holocaust of Jews, Christian Armenians, and genocidal processes in Africa. We have been talking about Hindu presence in Afghanistan. We have been talking about Hindus in Pakistan. We have been talking about Hindus in Bangladesh. We have been talking about Hindus in Sri Lanka. But we have never, over the years, almost 1,000 years, tried to describe it, that we have been facing a genocidal war of extermination. And we have never tried to internalize it. We have always tried to remain at the surface of the problem, remain at the surface of the attrition which has been unleashed on us. And unless Hindus recognize that there is a continuous war of genocide being waged on us, unless they internalize it into their social, cultural, and political thinking, responses will not come up. We'll be fiddling on the surface. We'll be circumventing the issues. We'll be trying to create problems. We'll be trying to create more problems rather than solving them. It has happened in the case of Jammu and Kashmir. I do not think Indian state is in a position to address the issue of the minorities, of Hindu minorities in Sri Lanka. I do not think they will be able to do it. Because the fact is that over the years, Indian state has become an instrument of war being waged on the Indian nation. भारत की राज्य सत्ता भारत के राष्ट्र से विमुख होकर इसके साथ एक युद्ध कर रही है. The biggest support structure for terrorism is not Pakistan, is not perhaps, it is the paradigm which we have here, the paradigm of self-flagellation, the paradigm of negation, and will not be of any use as a nation to the Hindus living outside the countries, because we are not as a nation state of any use to the Hindus living in India. The process has to be reversed from some point. It is easy, the Hindus of Kashmir have come out, they may come out and live in the rest of India. And last 25 years, they might have done better economically. But the genocidal avalanche is coming, it has entered India. And it is trying to overwhelm the Himalayas. And Himalayas are not being claimed by Pakistan only as a geographical domain, only as a place where the resources of their water are located. Himalayas are being overwhelmed. They are seeking to overwhelm the Himalayas because it's an eco-spiritual domain, because they want to destroy the place consciousness of India. And for destroying the place consciousness of India, what we call as Hindu India, the destruction or the Islamization of Himalayas is critical. And that's why the destruction of Hindus of Kashmir Valley were critical. A small minority, they could have allowed them to live within themselves and claimed that they are still having a secular polity. They are having a freedom struggle, a legitimate freedom struggle for the Kashmiri nationalists there. They could not have afforded it because the Hindus living in Kashmir provided that bridge, that civilizational bridge, that historical bridge with the continuity of India. And that's why they had to be exterminated. That is why they had to be pushed to destroy the place consciousness of Kashmir. The people who inherited that consciousness, they had to be destroyed. I personally feel that the biggest service which perhaps in this conference which we could do is at least state unambiguously that there have been genocide of Hindus going on unabated for a very, very long time. And this genocide has to be halted. And that this genocide, we have to put a halt, and it has to be abated through a thinking, through a process. And the critical component of it, and again I am telling you this from the perspective of reversing a process, a thinking process. The critical component of it can be how we tackle the problems of Hindus who are facing genocide within India. Because if we are not equipped to put a halt to the genocidal processes of Hindus within India, will be of no use to the Hindus living outside India. And for that, we have to realize that perhaps in this country, the secular paradigm was never a paradigm of coexistence. It was never a paradigm of people living on the principle of equality. It was always a paradigm of guilt making and victimhood making. It was a paradigm which basically was in sort of an auto-imperialism, auto-colonialism, where we ourselves subject ourselves to a process which serves the imperialist interests. And there are three imperialist processes. There are three imperialist expansionist processes in India: the Islamic imperialist process, the Christian Catholic imperialist process, and the Chinese imperialist process. These three imperialist processes are interplaying, they are competing, and they are holding Hindu civilization in India into a pincer attack, into a pincer aggression. We have to realize that the secularism in India has been the interplay of these three imperialist processes, calibrating them, coordinating them, using them to emasculate Hindus of India. So, how we unravel it, how we change it, it has to be defeated intellectually. Any space which is created has to be used to the full possible extent. Example, if a genocide has taken place in Kashmir, why does government of India and the Indian political class want to make it as a symbolic exercise? Why doesn't it really say that if India has to function as a secular polity, then the overwhelmingly Muslim majority area of Jammu and Kashmir also has to function as a secular entity? And what is Jammu and Kashmir in the context of India? What is its position? People debated in the context of Article 370. They said there is a separate constitution. I think far more serious thought is to be given this whole thing. Pakistan, creation of Pakistan was basically a unique claim based on the denominator of religion, a territorial claim based on the denominator of religion. And perhaps it can be paralleled only with the Jewish claim. Pakistan was created, it's a territorial claim. And after Pakistan was created, at the cost of a Holocaust, more than 3 million people dying in a span of 6 to 8 months, a similar claim started in J&K state, claiming a territory on the basis of its religious majority character, demanding a Muslim sphere of influence protected by the Indian constitutional process, and continuing this process of claiming the patches of India on the basis of a religious denominator. The question is not what Article 370 is. Actually, the question is the claim. The claim where we accept, even symbolically, that wherever Muslims are in majority, they should have a separate domain. They should have a separate environment. The entire system has to conform to a religious-based Muslim consciousness. And once we try to start technically debating these things, we miss the ideological and the deep psychological content of the entire process. Jammu and Kashmir, with a special status, it is the continuation of the partition. It is the continuation of the process of partition. It is the continuation of claiming India on the basis of religious denominators. This process has to be halted. There is a mistake which they have committed. The mistake is the expulsion of Hindus. The expulsion of Hindus has not only to be seen in the perspective of ultimately what can be done to mitigate their problems. The expulsion of the Hindus from Kashmir has to be seen as an ideological problem, as an issue which provides us a leverage to unhinge this whole process, as an issue where we can hold all those processes, all those expansionist processes accountable, telling them here is a Muslim majority domain which has failed to accommodate a small Hindu minority. It can be an instrument of accountability and instrument of critical accountability, where this whole ideological war, we can reverse it. Unfortunately, in India, the political class across the spectrum, I may be sorry, some of you might be, across the spectrum has treated the displacement of Kashmiri Hindus as a very, very small issue, as a very, very surface issue. They have tried to just handle it as surface. It's superficiality. They have not treated it as a deep contradiction which has emerged, and if we don't solve it, perhaps the entire Indian nation might disintegrate. So it's very critical that we identify the issues, we identify the processes through which we can reverse this aggression, first within India, and then at the same time create processes where we can identify the approaches where this entire Hindu continuum can be of some use to people, to Hindus living outside India. POL Kashmir has been an organization. The day we were pushed out, we said that now the Hindu habitat has to be created. The genocide has to be reversed. It is the first political claim to undercut and destroy the special status of Jammu and Kashmir from within. While the processes and while the consciousness to undermine and remove it from in a broader context take shape, there has to be a process from within, whereby we can address the genocide, whereby we can address the content of politics in the valley, whereby we can claim territory within the valley. When POL Kashmir demanded that all Kashmiri Hindus living in valley and outside have to be resettled in a territory, union territory, north and east of River Jhelum, this was perhaps the first response of claiming, civilizationally claiming, politically claiming a territory which can be a foothold for expanding and unraveling the Muslim expansionist process. I personally believe, I do not want to go into the details of the POL Kashmir political demand, but I want to tell you that there are two critical components. If we ignore it, it is going to have an impact at a very larger context. If Muslim separatists and Muslim politics is allowed to get away with the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus, perhaps we will not be having enough leverages ultimately to really take that upper moral ground, take that upper political, that high, and ask for an accountability, and ask for a process, a social process, a political process, India-wide, whereby right to equality becomes the principle and not the religious-based identity politics. Secularism is a process of incremental compromises to Christian identity politics and Muslim identity politics. This has to be reversed. This has to be undercut. This has to be ideologically destroyed. This is an opportunity. And I personally feel even the present government is bungling by reducing the issue of internal displacement into an economic issue of an economic package, and not an issue of genocide which has to be reversed. The first process which has to be demanded by Hindus, so far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, is the process of accountability. Somebody expelled Kashmiri Hindus out. Somebody is responsible. Somebody has to be penalized. This is the first process. The second thing which the Hindus have to demand, they have to demand a return, a sustainable return, not a symbolic return. Not a return to give secular texture to a brazenly Muslim communal politics, but the return of actual secularism. This is what we have to demand. We have to demand that a new habitat needs to be created in the valley. It may be a very small segment of population, perhaps asking for a political dispensation which has a very wider import. But I believe, and I humbly submit to all of you, that it is a critical component of at least starting a process of reversing the genocides unleashed on Hindus over the millennia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sri Ajay Shunguji. Your passion is obviously very clear, and I'm hoping after we have our other esteemed speaker, we'll have some really good interactions, questions for him and for our other speaker. With that, I'll turn it over to our distinguished guest, Shri KPS Gilji, for his remarks on this issue. Everybody probably knows, and he doesn't need any introduction. So, Mr. Gill.
A few years back, I attended a seminar here, not very far from this place, a seminar which was held in this on the issue of the Kashmiris who have been subjected to genocide and expulsion from Kashmir. One of the speakers was a gentleman from Kashmir belonging to the Congress Party. I was amazed at the speech he gave. One of his opening sentences are that the Indian state is tired and afraid of the Sunnis. This was the first time in my life. I was then about in my late 70s. I had heard talk of that type in our country. And it may be politically incorrect to say that this was the culmination of something which has been going on in India post-independence. Probably most of you are much younger, I can see, do not realize the impact of the thinking and speeches of Mahatma Gandhi and Pandit Nehru. Because this subject touches also Bengal and the plight of the Bengali Hindus. So, one is time and again reminded of Mahatma Gandhi's so-called achievement of ending riots in Hindu-Muslim riots in Noakhali. Ending the riots, I think this is the biggest distortion of history one can think of. Because the violence against the Bengali Hindus continues day in and day out till today. It has never ended. If we travel, and what was done recently is something beyond comprehension. The Aligarh Muslim University, before the elections, I think a subsidiary university or something was to be started in Kishangarh area in Bihar, and one branch is to be opened, satellite campus, and one branch is to be opened in Calcutta, I think. This is a crime against the nation. And I think we should persecute the people responsible, not for the scams or anything, but for this grave crime against the nation. Because the whole process, which has now culminated in what has been described, was started in 1888-89 by this gentleman who started the Aligarh Muslim University. And that university has been producing people of that nature on a regular basis. And they have used the political processes within the country for propagating a type of philosophy which leads to this atrocities on Hindus wherever these gentlemen are in a majority. I spent 25 years of my life in Assam. My very first district was the district of Nagaon, and I visited a police station which was called Lanka in that district. Now it is in another district because that has been split into 4 or 5 districts. So when I went to the police station, I looked at the map. And on the map there was a Mauja, shall we say, a small area of land, a revenue this thing, which was called Vrindavanpur. So after that I left Assam, went to Punjab. And I went back and I said, I went to Nagaon, saw my old house there. I said I would like to visit Vrindavanpur because I had been taken there by the police sub-inspector, and some people had come to me from that place and they had wanted to build a temple, and I said, build it. Who's going to stop you? And they had built a temple. So I said I'd like to go and see that. So the Thana tells me, the district tells me, there's no such place. I left in 84. That means in a few years the nomenclature had changed or had been deliberately changed. At that time we were dealing with the problem of Bangladeshi infiltrants. I found it was my first district. Assam was a remote area. So I worked out a practical solution to this. And I said that let us encourage transfer of property between Hindus from Bangladesh, then East Pakistan, and the illegal infiltrants who had come and built up property here, and let them exchange and let there be unofficial exchange of property and let this happen. And it happened, and there was a change. We didn't go to the government, we didn't go to Delhi or Shillong. We worked out the solution on our own. Subsequently, when Bhindrawala was active in Punjab and his doctrine was sought to be enforced, and one of the cornerstones of his doctrine was that attack the Hindus in Punjab so that they migrate and Punjab becomes a Sikh majority state. The Hindus come to this side. They retaliate upon the Sikhs in the rest of the country, and they go back to Punjab, and Punjab becomes a totally Sikh majority state. and then it will be easy to form Khalistan. So I took on my own, without consulting the then Prime Minister, or running to the Home Minister, or running to the Chief Minister. I took a decision that wherever 4 or more families of Hindus live, we shall protect them wherever they are. And they will continue doing whatever they are doing uninterruptedly. And we did it. There were political parties which were fishing in troubled waters and wanted Hindus to migrate. But we prevented that. And today you have a situation which is entirely different, a situation of peace. But what has happened in Kashmir is unimaginable, that it should have happened in India. And why so much time is being spent on discussions? Why not resettle them there in Kashmir? Why should it even be a union territory? Why not just another district in Kashmir? After all, some gentleman created a Muslim district in Kerala, I think. So I was surprised on reading this news when I read it in the papers. So that is the Aligarh effect. And as you said, that the danger to us within India is greater than the danger from Pakistan. We have Pandit Nehru died in 1965. So we sent out these illegal infiltrants. At that time there were 13 districts in Assam, and out of the 13, only 3 districts were acting to send out the illegal infiltrants. And the Pakistanis settled them on the borders. They made temporary camps for them and settled them there. And since they were in concentrated form, they went and attacked the Hindu villages within East Pakistan. The East Pakistani Hindus came and took shelter in Assam, in Bengal, and even as far in as Bihar. Following that, there was very serious communal rioting in almost the whole of eastern India, and it was a situation which led to the holding of a Home Ministers' Conference between India and Pakistan. Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri was the Home Minister at that time. I do not remember the name of the Pakistani Home Minister. The 2 delegations met in Delhi. The meetings were held in the Secretariat. And the Assam delegation was staying in Assam Bhavan. I had relatives here, I was staying with them. So one evening I go to the Assam Bhavan. I had come out for some time. I go back. I find a sort of a gloom in the people among the delegation. and I was shown a letter. I was told, not shown a letter, I was told that the then Prime Minister, Mr. Nehru, had said that this detection and deportation of illegal infiltration should stop. For Assam, it was a very serious matter. It still is a serious matter. But the Prime Minister, in a meeting with the Chief Minister, Mr. Bimla Chalia was the Chief Minister, had told him to stop the deportation of illegal infiltrants. We got together and advised the Chief Minister to send a written note to the Prime Minister saying that this will have very serious consequences for Assam. We sat down and drafted that letter, got it ready and sent it off. The Home Minister conference ended without any significant resolutions, but the writing stopped and the tension was reduced to some extent. This was in 1964. After 64, there have been agitations and everything, but no serious attempt has been made by anybody to detect and deport the illegal infiltrants. Even at that time, it was only 3 superintendents out of the 13 who were acting to carry out the deportation of illegal infiltrants. The others said that if we do this, we will be looked upon as anti-Muslim. Now this was something surprising, that there is the original inhabitants of Assam, the legal inhabitants of Assam, and they are the illegal. And if the illegal infiltrants happen to belong to a certain community, it does not mean that if you do your duty to do something which is for the good of the state, you should be branded as anti a community or something. So, the subject today says that how do you protect the Hindus? Assam, you have wide areas where you do not find a single habitation of Hindus, not a single man. Mile after mile you can travel. At least I could travel. I don't know whether the SPs can travel in those areas now. Because I always made it a point that if I can't enter a place or an area because of any reasons, that means that my law and order is failing. I must be able to enter. And the community response, is the response of a riot. The community, when it gets fed up, responds with a riot. But that is no response. The state has to respond. The state has to respond. Assam, when I went there in 58 and 61 I was posted as the Superintendent of Police of the district where Shri Shankar Dev was born. After leaving the district in 64, I never went there till about 79. And I travelled to Shri Shankar Dev's birthplace. And in Assam, there is a sort of a vague intercommunal boundary. And by looking at the sheds and the houses, you can say that this area is immigrant area and this is the original Assamese area. In those 15 years, that boundary had shifted by 15 kilometers to the disadvantage of the local Assamese people. So what is the response of the community there? The response is many of them are shifting to Delhi. Similarly, in Kashmir, Jammu, many are shifting to Delhi, to Chandigarh, to other towns of Punjab, Pathankot, etc. The areas inhabited by in the subcontinent, from Balochistan to Burma border, are shrinking. And my feeling is that unless there is a policy of the state to ensure that this process is brought to an end through serious and sustained work on this front, this area will keep on shrinking. It is a very, along with this, there is talk of protecting of Hindus and Sikhs in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Well, we are very proud of our foreign policy over the years, 60 years, and all that. Our foreign policy is a policy which is very effective within the country. Outside the country, no one cares about it. We have an army which only fights within the border. I mean, it has not fought beyond the borders of our country, except for a few days, say 5 days or 6 days. And I was at a function where Amrinder has written a book on the First World War. There were Indian soldiers who went and fought in Europe, and the size of the contingent which went to Europe, the size was exactly the size of the Indian Army today. My uncle fought, he was in the area which is now known as Iraq in the Second World War. Some of my relatives went to France in the First World War. But today we have created an army which can only fight within the border and get kudos when it does flood relief work or things of that nature. So if we are to have an army and if we do not equip it properly, how can we talk of protection beyond the borders? We cannot. Because both the army and the foreign policy are interlinked to a very large extent. You talk about the Chinese, this thing. One of the great strengths of the Chinese are their defense forces. What is the cornerstone of American policies? It is their ability to fight in any corner of the world, although that ability is reduced to some extent, to a great extent now. We have, what is our administrative response? Our administrative response is to set up a minorities commission. Well, if there is a minorities commission, it should look at the country as a whole. Which community is a minority where? As I told you, in certain parts of Assam, you find minuscule population of Hindus. I remember 3 villages, I'll just speak about that and close after that. There was a village called Daugong, just outside Daugong, which is the district headquarters. This was about 7 to 10 miles away. This village was totally surrounded by immigrant Muslim populations. But I must give credit to this village that they were able to maintain their land holdings and their households in that spot, and they still hold it. Subsequently, I was in a district called Tejpur, Darang. There's a village called Panbari. I was in my house in Tejpur and the villagers came to me. They said, we are a solitary village totally surrounded by migrant Muslim population. So I posted a small contingent of police there. Later on, as IG, I was traveling in that area, and there had been a huge riot extended. The frontage of that riot was about 30 kilometers, and the depth was about 10 to 15 kilometers. And I was stopped on the road. They said, we are from this village, Panbari. This was about 17 years later. They said, we've been stopped here. We are being attacked from all sides. And you had posted this police contingent there. They are protecting us, but they have run out of ammunition. So I said, okay, I'll come. So we drove in, we found half the village and the police station, and the women folk of the village were hiding in the paddy fields. And early morning at about 3 o'clock, when we reached and a sort of a signal was sent, to see them coming out of the paddy fields like wisps of mist, it was so tragic that this should be happening here. And the sub-inspector who was in charge, he says, sir, I'm glad you come because there's been firing going on and we would have been overwhelmed. We have run out of ammunition. So these things which happen in parts of India and go unreported and unknown, these have to be rectified. It has to be rectified. It can be rectified. If there is a will, it can be rectified. But rectified through fair play and justice, not by anything else. An administration which is fair, which delivers justice, which is honest. Corruption, it vitiates the atmosphere. It does not deliver justice. Before the elections, in my house, I had 5 visitors, of which 4 I did not know. One I knew, but they had all come and I was talking to them. So I asked them one question. I said, it seems to me that the Hindu in India today is frightened. This is before the elections. So the man who was from Delhi, he says no. But the one who was from Maharashtra, he says yes. The one who was from Bengal, he says yes. The one who was from Assam, he says yes. Out of the 5, 4 said yes, we are frightened. A peculiar phenomenon which is difficult to understand. But it is there. It was there. So there has to be firm and sustained administrative action within the country, and if necessary, special institutions can be created, because it is institutions which work on a sustained basis, not individuals. Individuals work, and if their work is not carried on by others, then it reverts back to the old situation. So I hope somebody will set up the institutions to address these problems. Thank you.
Some very, very interesting remarks from Mr. Gill and from Ajay also, talking about that unless you have internal justice, people externally living outside India can't look for that. And Mr. Gill shared some of his personal observations and experiences that he has. We'd like to see some questions, and hopefully it can be questions, generally focused questions, not discussion topics, even though we want to engage in discussion, but there's a lot of people here who probably have questions. So let's start with you. We'll hand over the mic and please address the question.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, my name is Kanesalingam. I'm a Hindu from Malaysia. I'm also a lawyer, and I would like to pick up on Shri KPS Gill's comment that the way we can solve all these problems is through justice, and that I would like to address from the point of view of Hindu Dharma. What we do, we must believe it's right. Now, my friend said there is genocide of Hindus in Kashmir, but I've also heard reports there's genocide of Muslims in Kashmir. The Muslims are complaining. We have in India a law known as Armed Forces Special Powers Act of 1958. Now, under this law, the armed forces can go into any of these 7 sister states in the north of India, and then later it was extended also to Jammu and Kashmir. And if they find a group of 5 people, they can ask them to disperse. If they refuse to disperse, they can fire, they can shoot. And no action can be taken against the army without approval from the central government.
No, I must interrupt you here. That's not the law. That is not the law at all. There's been a lot of misrepresentation. The Armed Forces Special Powers Act was brought in when there was insurgency in the northeast. The 5 and more persons dispersal, this has been in India since the British days. This was known as Section 144. That section is still there, and it is all over the country. As far as Armed Forces Special Powers Act is there, it can also be imposed in any part of the country by a notification by the government of India. In Punjab it was enforced. Then once the disturbances in Punjab are over, it's been removed. In J&K, there is a problem of terrorism, if you know the history of terrorism in J&K, it was after the induction of foreign terrorists into the state of J&K in 1993 that the situation started becoming rather acute. In addition to that, the Pakistanis decided that within the state of J&K, if they keep a certain number of terrorists, the state can be kept under permanent turmoil. But it was the response of the army which has brought down shall we say, the terrorist activity in J&K to a very large extent. And it is I do not know the latest situation because I'm now retired, but what one reads from the newspapers, some of the youngsters are getting influenced by the ISIS activities in the caliphate of whichever they have the caliphate.
Just one clarification. If the law allowed it previously, why do we have the special powers of the Armed Forces Act? Because previously, under the Criminal Procedure Code, if 5 people gather together with a dishonest intention, that's an unlawful assembly. But under the Special Powers Act, they don't have that. And under the Criminal Procedure Code, if it's wrongly used, they can go to the courts. But under this Special Powers, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, they can't. So there is an element of injustice in that Armed Forces Special Powers Act. And there is a Supreme Court tribunal which has recommended its repeal, but the government has not repealed. I hope the present BJP government will repeal that act so that Hindu Dharma will prevail in Jammu, Kashmir and the 7 northern states.
Without the
Dharma will prevail without the Hindus.
Hindu Dharma will prevail without the Hindus.
No, no. Hindu
Just a
Dharma is for both Hindus and non-Hindus.
Okay, well, let's, the question, just one second. He has a, Mr. Gill, what do you think the Armed Forces Act should be repealed from J&K? What is your opinion?
You see, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, we had it in Assam. The army officers they can be charged under that act if they do something. Recently some officers have been convicted. In Punjab we got so many officers convicted. It's not correct. I think there's a lot of propaganda which my learned friend has.
Do you want to speak on that? Just one quick point. We want to get other questions.
You know,
On the AFSPA.
Oh, can I say a word? In the mid-50s, I was a young infantry officer in what was then Nagaland. If at that time, when I went to flush out the village, if this pretty black view of the upshot, or whatever you call it, was thrown at me, I would have been able to do my job. Okay. Now and we learned from the old British campaign in Malaya, how they flushed out the insurgents, and then we followed the same model in then what's called Nagaland. Okay. We were at that time surrounded by the overground insurgents that were not underground that time. Now, if in these conditions, and basically insurgency is handled by major captains and below, right? Because they are the ones on the ground all over. If at that time the state is going to throw caution, legal caution on this man, I understand what we should not do You should not do what is not required to be done. Use the minimum force is essential. So you train your forces like that. But if this, as Mr. Gill rightly pointed out, that if you withdraw this, you will destroy your security system in J&K.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Let's try another.
Yes, yes.
One quick thing.
I have to just add one more thing, that J&K state is one of the worst terrorist affected areas where we do not have a recognized anti-terrorist law. So if you have to control the situation where terrorism operates from the civil sanctuary, you have to create a structure at least which is possible within the political system. And Armed Forces Act at least provides that leverage. And number two, which I want to say is that under the present law, those army officers or army personnel who have committed some crime, they have been penalized. And if you compare it with the international, forces anywhere in the world, you will find that the process of accountability has been far more rigorously followed in J&K than anywhere else. Recently, 7 army officers were sentenced to a life imprisonment by the army court itself. So do not have this impression that the army is operating with impunity and there is no accountability there.
Okay. You, sir. Why don't you?
My name is Paramadveti Swami, and I've been working in South America in the dictatorship governments of Chile, Argentina, and Brazil and Paraguay. And coming back, allowing to refresh this idea of protecting Hindu minorities. Of course, listening about Kashmir, it like makes one's blood boil, all the sufferings there. But the Hindu minorities, which are existing in small pockets around the world, they are taking this whole idea that we are protected from India, from the Vishwa Hindu Parishad concept, that we are one big family, we are protecting, we are allowing people, because the interesting thing is they are not born as Hindus there, but they are converted by conviction to the mantras and to the following of the Dharma teachings of the Indian sages. And of course, they are very much persecuted. Like in some cases, the government made rules that anybody who follows a non-Christian belief, he will be immediately jailed or otherwise chastised. So this is going on. Nowadays, less. But my question or request in this regard is, when the Hindu identity, the solidarity, is extended either to Kashmir or to Argentina, and the people there have a feeling we are accepted. There are people in India, in the Bharat, that actually care for us, and we can refer to them, and they will publish something on an international, like maybe even like in the case of Russia, when Russia wanted to ban the Bhagavad Gita just 2 years back. It came into the parliament of India, and they got afraid. They stopped the court. Hey, we are not going to get in trouble in India because of your Orthodox Christians objecting to some sentence in the Bhagavad Gita. So in this, the political power of Hinduism, which is now growing in such a wonderful way, if we can have that conception and have those countries feel, if we are persecuting Hindus, we will be discriminated. There will be economic sanction of some kind. We will not be just left unharmed without thinking of any retaliation or injustice, like Mr. Gill was saying. Just way, but they have to feel there's Hindu unity. For us, in such far off places, just the fact that the Indians consider us also Hindus is a great support. And I've seen the difference, because when I declare myself in Chile as Hindu, the government changed the attitude to us and gave us religious freedom recognition, which they never wanted to do under Pinochet, under any condition. So the power of the word Hindu was there.
Absolutely. Thank you. question.
Yeah, first I'd like to say that my heart goes out to you, Kashmir brothers, and Assam too. I come from Kerala, and the situation in Kerala is really grave at the moment. It's really grave at the moment. It has not started in the recent years. It has been, slowly coming from a long time. In fact, when I was small, I went for a Eid celebration at my friend's place who were Muslims, and I was just like 8 or so, and India-Pakistan cricket match was going on, and that family was supporting the Pakistan team. So, and they're Malayali Muslims, Keralite Muslims. This has been going on, and it is being more rampant at the moment. 50% of Keralites are Christians and Muslims. Another 50% are not ready to say they are Hindus, you see. And another thing is that the media is all controlled by Jamiat Islamia, and also all their news and everything is biased. What can we do about this? Because we don't want to turn up or end up as Kashmir. We need to protect our land. What can we do about this?
Arun, you have a comment on that?
See, the Hindu fraternity, in fact, the Hindu organizational structures all over the world, and particularly in India, have to be made very sensitive to the needs of the minorities, Hindu minorities living in India and outside. What has happened that over the years, I found that the Hindu persecution and Hindu humiliation or Hindu attrition, which is being created in different parts where Hindus are in minority, has become an issue, political issue in the main heartland. But conversely, it has not transformed the political formations to have sensitivity and to have policies where they can really evolve a structure of thinking and politics which can be immediately beneficial to the people living in the in areas where they are in minority. But there is a broader thing which you have to understand, that even though Hindus are in majority, the state behavior over the years has been anti-Hindu. How to transform it? It has not to be anti-Muslim or anti-Christian, but it has not to be anti-Hindu. Why is Indian state waging war against Hindus in different forms? We have to understand it. It's a very simple thing, that the historical ally of Hindus is the Indian nation state. And if that historical ally does not remain, you are rudderless, we are rudderless. Muslims have an entire world which are their historical allies. So the imperialist game is to see that Indian state is emasculated to the extent that it turns anti-Hindu. And we have not made any strides in it. I think the only ray of hope which I personally saw was when Narendra Modi, some time back before the election, said that India is the natural homeland for the persecuted minorities living, Hindu minorities living all over the world. Now, this is not as yet the policy of BJP. And this has to be followed. And this can be simply followed when, say, for example, in this Hindu organization, we say that the Indian relations, the government relations will also be determined by the behavior of the governments in foreign countries towards the Hindus. Why can't it be stated? Why can't there be a simple resolution in the parliament that Indian state will not tolerate the Hindu genocides, Hindu attrition? What's wrong? And it can start from Kashmir because a brazen displacement has taken place. Why can't a simple resolution be passed in the parliament that it's not internal displacement, it is not migration, it's a genocide. And what we have to deal with is a reversal of genocide as per the international norms. And why can't we people, we in this organization, think that if it is true that the attritional levels are not discriminatory, they are genocidal, then why don't we have an organization, a structure created here where we can fight the genocide, where we have awareness about the genocide. 3 million people dying in Holocaust. It is in volume and in intensity, the killings have been more than the Holocaust of Jews. The Holocaust of Jews took place over a period of time, and there is total forgetfulness in India. Very little worthwhile has been written about what happened to the Hindus in Kotli and Bimber, what happened to the Hindus in Peshawar. So my point is that it's a sort of a death immersion. We have to go to the level that there is a process of emasculation and destruction of this civilization. And unless we reach that level, we will not be devising. There is a process of expediency dominant. That's why I try to give an example that if the entire displacement of Hindus from Kashmir is reduced to how much money will be given to the families so that they will agree to live in a Muslim environment. If this is the policy which the government has, then it is anti-Hindu. We have a situation in J&K state where we'll have the local Taliban growing now. KPS Gill said some youth, it's not some youth, 3 universities recognized by India, they are churning Taliban cadres. And foreign journalists and foreign NGOs from Belgium, they came and they tried to meet and tell the local government that what we met, the type of youth which we meet in the universities, it is far more Talibanized. The situation is that you have a youth, on one hand he has computer, on the other hand he has Quran, and this is the Talibanized youth. So the situation is grim in rest of the country also. We'll be having local clones growing. But it cannot be all terrorism is not exported. It's not exported from Pakistan. There is local terrorism growing, and we have to be aware. And it is growing under the shadow of a perverted vision of secularism.
Yes, sir.
I am Kupuram from Tamil Nadu, from Rameshwaram. It is very near to Sri Lanka. As you have said, that is Islamic imperialism, Christian imperialism, now it is Chinese imperialism also. That is, Chinese aggression is there in Sri Lanka that affects the south, as our sisters have told. And also we have the, that is Islamic terrorism also, there is ISIS spots, villages are there in Tamil Nadu. This is also has to be included. The south is very in danger. Do we, that as we have told, do we can have a resolution to the government of India, that is the present government, to include all these things to the to get all these problems to the government? Do we can have that in our that forum, in this Hindu political conference forum?
Yeah, I have suggested let it be a simple resolution that Hindus will rise and stand up to any genocidal process against Hindus anywhere in the world, including India.
Yeah, yeah.
What is the big deal about it?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I think Hindu mindset has to be changed because Hindus accept, if their rights are violated, it's all right. Hindu governments do not act with courage. For example, last 10 years is a waste of time, this UPA government. That's what, India's prestige has gone down, and that's why the things happened, what is happening in Bangladesh. About Bangladesh, United States congressmen spoke about Bangladesh, Hindus' rights, but never by an Indian government, not even by BJP, frankly. BJP is yet to show it stands up for what is right. For example, Yazidi people in Iraq, they were supposed to be, once upon a time, went from India, Hindus, and India is yet to take a position. Hindus in America are taking a position, standing up by them and supporting them in a great way. And Yazidi men, and they said, okay, Hindus are the only ones that can save us. Everybody else, either you convert or die. But that has not transformed into the power. We elected Hindu government now, or BJP, but yet it has to show it stands up for what is right.
Thank you.
Can I
Please.
make a point? You see, I think
Question also, if there is one.
question as well. You see, it seems to me that governments are constrained by many factors. Therefore, we as in civil society can't rely entirely on them. It seems to me, seeing Tapan Babu there, that in many parts of India, we are actually at war. So normal rules do not apply. I'm a historian. I just don't accept the normal rules. We have to be careful about harming our government, but we have to be conscious of that. For Hindus, actually, the tranquility of the private space is important. And that space tends to be tranquil on a daily basis. So we need leadership to translate our problems into action, which Swami Vivekananda is one of those rare people he's trying to do. But most of all, it seems to me, judging by the civil wars in the last 5-6 centuries from Europe in the 7th century, we are at war. The war is open in J&K, in West Bengal. But this is also the case in Kerala, more subdued. So we must react on a war footing. It does not mean violence for violence, but we must take extreme measures. Normal rules do not apply. And we have here a chairman who embodies the resistance of Bharat to all these issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we already have a solution. A lot has been said. I remember in 47, once my father walked in and he had a quick chest. I said, what's wrong with the chest? He said, I've got a metal vest underneath. Because the guards had started, the fires were burning. So he said, I said, where did you get it from? He said, from RSS. I think this is the only organized body today which can actually take a stand against all these issues and problems that exist in the Northeast. Because in the Northeast, I've seen in areas as far away, as remote as Along. If you ever heard of the name? Never. Along or Mon, have you heard of a name? But they are present there and running institutions and exerting influence over the local populations. Likewise, now if anybody can do anything in this district of Malappuram, in Kerala, it's only RSS. The government has failed. There are no local Hindu bodies over there. So if we, I think, repose our faith and push RSS to take even more proactive role, then only I think there is some hope. Otherwise, I don't see any other institution. Mr. Keviat talked about institutions. I don't know which institution we can now raise which will take care of these things other than RSS, which already exists, and it can probably the only institution which can probably help someday.
Thank you. We're running out of
Yeah.
time, so we're going to make questions pretty quickly.
This
We
is
have a
the.
gentleman. Just
I have a question to
questions,
Mr. Ajay,
fast.
and if Gil Saab could also comment on it. I guess what has been happening here in the meeting, we have been talking about government resolutions, what the government should do. The focus should be on what we can do. We ended up discussing AFSPA, AFSPA in a session which was meant for how the Hindu minority should be protected. Sir, I believe, I'm Dr. Nishant Khare, I'm a plastic surgeon, and I work on the youth wing of the RSS in the city of Indore. I work there. Sir, I believe that the biggest problem is ignorance. The Hindu community is not aware of the plight of the Hindu population elsewhere. 60% of this country is under 30 years age. That is, they were born after the Kashmiri Pandits were displaced. I believe what we only need to do is make the Hindu community throughout the nation aware of this problem. If we get 200 people going into 600 districts, spending 2 months each, go to every school and college, tell them that this is what is happening to the Hindu brethren. एक बार ये जाग जाएंगे, ये यूथ जाग जाएगी, तो हर सरकार को वो निर्णय लेना पड़ेगा जो उसे लेना चाहिए.
please.
My name is Ajay Nair from Kerala.
Question.
Sir, during the 50s, in Kerala, 88% of land was holding by Hindus. Today, it has become 22.8% only. Second thing, there are more than 250,000 Bangladeshis are in Kerala. Last year, 32,000 crores rupees they have sent from Kerala through only the bank, because they are holding either bank account in Bengal, but they are originally from Bangladesh. They are crossing the border, just giving 500 rupees. I don't know which border, I don't know. Okay, and also mentioned in Jammu and Kashmir, there are Taliban's village. But in Kerala, most of the states are become Taliban village, and most of the coast area is belong to Muslims, and Dawood Ibrahim is holding lot of area in Kerala, coast area, which is very, very dangerous, and Tamil Nadu near the Sri Lanka is also very near. And in Sri Lanka also, most of Pakistan is now holding contract, because Chinese companies got developing the infrastructure development contract in Sri Lanka, and this Chinese contractor given the main contractor given subcontract to Pakistani companies, and lot of Pakistanis in Sri Lanka they are working, and it is very dangerous in that area. Kerala is very sensitive area is nowadays.
Thank you.
Hello.
Last question, please. We'll have.
Can we have
further
a,
discussion.
I had a question. It's a very strong forum and we already have a Hindu helpline working for Hindus in some areas of India. As this session is meant for safety and security, can we have something stronger Hindu helpline, stronger legal helpline, stronger complaint helpline, like the person said about the illegal immigrants? It's the backbone of all the terrorism in India. Earlier we saw 2 years back, Nitish Kumar never arrested a terrorist at the border of Nepal, and then the Indian government had to walk in and arrest Yasin Bhatkal. So there's a need, there's a requirement of a stronger legal, politically supportive Hindu helpline. And it should be available on net. The complaint should be available through SMS services, through telephone calls all over the world. Can we have a stronger helpline to help Hindus in this country and around this country?
Great.
Thank you.
Mr. Gill, one of the threads that is coming across all the time is, what is the government, or what can be done about this illegal immigration that's happening in this country? I mean, that's an economic, security, and all across issue that is coming up. From your experience, do you have any suggestions, or is there something that is being done about this? Because if you notice, every question keeps coming down to the whole point of illegal immigration.
You see, I was in Assam a few months back. I met the Chief Secretary and all his senior officers. And I raised, because it's a question which has been agitating me from 1961. So I asked him about illegal infiltration. So he was talking about how with the new technologies you can issue work permits, allow them to stay to work. Now what has happened is that in Delhi itself, in Gurgaon, lot of domestic workers are from, they say they're from Bengal, but they are from across the border. With this, the youngsters having been educated in such a manner that they do not want to go back to do farming and activities of that nature, even in Punjab. There's more reliance on the workforce from Bangladesh. So how do we stop it? One thing is that this fence has come up, but as somebody said, that, as I had said earlier also, that corruption vitiates everything. No matter whether it's 5 rupees corruption or 500 crores, it affects everybody. This thing was simple, that do not go after the illegal infiltrants, but go after those who employ them. Go after those who harbor them. These are the people who harbor them, these are the people who employ them. Catch hold of them, and these fellows will automatically stop. And it happened. I used to, because under the Foreigners Act, harboring is an offence. So you catch these people and they will stop. You see, this lady here had talked about Kerala, and this gentleman from somewhere in the back row there about the large number of infiltrants in Kerala. Well, they are going into Pakistan, into the Middle East. I went into a restaurant in Paris, which was being run by these illegal infiltrants from Bangladesh. So this movement of people through these boats and illegal cartels which transport them, human trafficking, is a major problem all over the world. And here the problem becomes more acute because it disturbs the balance of population. So here, as I told you, during our time, only 3 out of 13, not even 25% people were willing to act. Now I think not even 5% people will be willing to act. And after the coming in of this Narega, the getting labor for work is going to be very, very difficult. Much of the manual labor is now being outsourced to the Bangladeshi thing. Most of the contractors are relying on their work. That is because we are still working with there are solutions, but then those solutions have to be ongoing and institutionalized solutions. Although, what institutions? I would say that we in some states are going along with what is illegal. Some states think that going along with terrorists is a good thing. That is because of the votes. Because of the votes, they want to go. When we were dealing with terrorism in Punjab, we said if they say this, we will ensure that the opposite happens. If they say a Bharat will only be 11 people, you should ensure that 1100 people go in the Bharat. We should defy every single diktat of theirs. But we have here people who say that Americans did not treat Osama ji, Osama Saab ko अच्छी तरह treat नहीं किया. I mean, शर्म आनी चाहिए इन लोगों को. But Kerala, of course, has a history from a long time back. Khalifat, Khilafat movement, the Mopla rebellion and all that, and the infamous Ali brothers. तो खिलाफत तो अब वहाँ शुरू हो गई है मिडल ईस्ट में तो you see the state has to act justly, and justly in every single action of it. You look at Guwahati. This is the capital. Dispur is the capital. Within 3 miles of that are areas which are non-cadastral, and the revenue law in Assam says that anyone who comes and lives there for 3 years and pays land revenue can claim that land. And these fellows sitting in the capital, chief minister sitting there, chief secretary and all that, cannot get that land surveyed. Why? Because of corruption. Nothing else but corruption. Because they know that when the man comes there, then he will give money to the patwari, he will give money to the tahsildar, and that money will go up. This is, unless we start tackling corruption, all laws become valueless. You pay your money through everything. You mean to say, what is the population of people displaced from Kashmir? Pandits.
More than 350,000 in 90.
More, 3.5 lakh. Ajib, this is our expertise. कितने आए थे दिल्ली में?
Almost 100,000 Delhi.
Delhi में the population of Delhi before independence was 4 lakhs. After some time it was 22 lakhs. You know? So why can't 3.5 lakhs be settled in Kashmir? Why can't this be settled?
Major.
If somebody says that he can't settle them, well, he should be dismissed, that government should be dismissed. It is a shame for the government of Kashmir, it's a bigger shame for the government of India. You mean to say you can't resettle 3.5 lakh people in this wide open?
You had a point, or final point.
May I make one suggestion?
Yeah, just, yes. One.
My name is Surya Narayan. I spent 1 year in Calicut University as Professor of Maritime Studies, a chair which was instituted by the Naval Headquarters. And I came to know about what my young friend from Kerala, the coast, 2 or 3 coastal villages near Kozhikode, commonly known as the Calicut, is known by the local people as Bangladeshi colony. And according to the chief of police there, he told me many of the crimes in Calicut are committed by them. Now, how do we solve this problem? That is more important from my point of view. In some universities in Kerala as well as in Chennai, we are studying in depth the problems of coastal security, which has become aggravated as a result of infiltration from Sri Lanka, the arrest of few Muslims in Chennai and all. Now, if coastal security has to be secured, the people living in the coastal villages has to be the eyes and ears of the government. If a stranger comes to any of the coastal village, they should report it to the police station. And our failure had been, whether it is the state level or the central level, have been to get the confidence of these coastal villages. We must rectify this. Gil may be knowing the 1965 conflict with Pakistan. The knowledge that Pakistani infiltrators got into Indian territory was provided by shepherds who moved from place to place, because the government of India used to give them salt and sugar, and they informed. So the coastal villages had to become the center. They had to report to the nearest police station if a stranger comes in. And we had to do a lot of exercise on how coastal regions in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala and other places had to be done. And I hope one of the things that could be done by this, we should not depend on the government. The government may have its constraints, but we can raise our voice as a group to bring pressure on the government. Our region, last point and I'll stop. Our region is so intimately interlinked that what happens in one state happens the other. If in Bangladesh the Muslims are converted into Hinduism, if Pakistan Muslims are converted into Hinduism, the Hindus in India cannot remain dormant. They have to raise their voice. So instead of applying a sort of relations which England has with the United States, we like to take into consideration what happens in one country affects us, and take into consideration we as an organization, we like to make benign inputs for the government.
Great. We've had a great session. I know there's a lot more questions. I'm hoping that you'll get some time afterwards, but we've run way past this.